Welcome to the show. I am James Swanwick, and today we're talking about miscarriages, trauma, feeling zoned out, moving into feeling present, snapping at our children, guilt, not feeling in control, but ultimately feeling incredibly present and feeling meaningful in our relationships. Sounds like a lot. We'll also be talking about bootleggers. There's a term I haven't heard in a while that came from the early 1900s in the US. Bootlegging was people who were selling alcohol during the time of Prohibition, when alcohol was illegal and banned throughout the United States. Surprisingly, what I learned today, in India, there are parts of India where alcohol is banned and there are bootleggers running riot. It's so much fun to hear about this. I mean, it's not a particularly fun topic, but interesting, I think, is probably a more appropriate word. Today we're talking to Purvi Desai, who is a 39-year-old homemaker and a former journalist. She lives currently with her family in Athens, Georgia. She and her two sons and her husband have been in Athens, Georgia for a while now, and Purvi is 92 days alcohol-free as we recorded this upcoming conversation. And Purvi, as she will share, was drinking too much to deal with the trauma of miscarriages. And I want to just take this time to thank Purvi for being so honest and vulnerable and open about that. I have experienced a couple of miscarriages with my partner, and it's not a particularly fun or pleasant experience, as you can imagine. And so I really appreciated Purvi sharing so openly about her experience. And yeah, Purvi's 92 days alcohol-free as we recorded this, and it's so inspiring to hear her journey from growing up in Kenya. I'll let her share more of the story, of course, but she grew up in Kenya and then lived in India and the United States. So 3 different cultures and 3 different ways of how people perceive alcohol. I mean, we're all human beings, of course. Humans are humans. But, very different cultural views on alcohol in our lives, from Kenya to India to the United States. So Purvi's going to share a little bit about that. And I couldn't be happier for her 92 days alcohol-free and her plan for the future. Just a reminder that if you'd like to have an exploratory conversation about the Project 90 program that Purvi has just completed, you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/schedule and have a quick chat with our top coach, Victoria English. What's really fun is that Purvi listened to this very podcast show for 4 months. Listening to the episodes that you've been listening to, most likely. And then she finally listened to me saying, hey, go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/schedule. And she booked a call, and then she enrolled in Project 90, and now she's reaping the benefit of an alcohol-free lifestyle. So it's so fun to be able to interview a long-time listener and have it come full circle from listener to feeling a little timid and a little concerned and unsure about taking action around drinking, to actually taking the action, having success, and then getting to celebrate a podcast guest on this very show. Incredibly fulfilling for me for that to happen. So, without further ado, let's listen to Purvi Desai's story from Kenya to the United States, to India, back over to the United States. And let's hear her alcohol-free lifestyle journey. Here she is. What was your first newspaper job, Purvi?
Okay, it was the south of Atlanta, and the funny thing is, I don't actually remember the name of it because I just worked there for like a couple of months, and it was a very small paper. It was the only paper I could work at while graduated and being with my parents until I found a better job. And then, I got married and I moved to New Jersey where I started a job with the Princeton Packet. They are big. Well, I don't know how they are now, but they were a big company that owned several community newspapers. And so I worked at one of those community newspapers over there until we moved to Florida. And then I started working with another newspaper group in Florida in Jupiter, just west of West Palm, just north of West Palm Beach, called the Hometown News.
Yeah, nice. I love talking to former journalists because I am a former journalist. I was a newspaper reporter for a newspaper called the Courier Mail back in Brisbane, Australia in the 90s, from 1993 until 1998. And then I went over to London and I was a sports journalist for Sky Sports, covering things like English football and the British Open golf and cricket, the World Cup cricket,
Yeah,
World Cup
I'm
rugby.
familiar with cricket.
Oh, of course, because of your Indian heritage, right?
Yeah.
Whereabouts is your ethnicity from
Well,
in
that's the funny thing. I'm Indian, but I'm born in Kenya, and we go back 2-3 generations in Kenya. So I'm Indian, but I'm born in Kenya, raised in Kenya.
Whereabouts in Kenya?
The capital, Nairobi.
How long were you there until you moved over to the US?
18, right before as soon as I finished high school, we moved here and I started university here.
Got it. And how did being in Kenya and growing up in Kenya shape your view of alcohol, maybe?
To be honest, that was not at all a factor in alcohol for me. I guess for me, what shaped my relationship with alcohol was my mom being super strict with me, and her views on alcohol was always like, we're always like, no, no, So it kind of made me want to rebel. Um, so I don't think my childhood growing up in Kenya had any effect on alcohol because I don't remember anybody over there in terms of when I think about my alcohol use. I never think about or reflect back on that time.
So you had to move to the United States of America to start learning how to abuse attractively
Oh,
packaged
yeah.
poison.
And I think I learned how to abuse it really well in college.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you must have been fresh-faced and innocent when you came over from Kenya to the US. Where did you go? Were you in Georgia? Was that where you went to college in the US?
Well, yeah, I did go to the University of Georgia. But the first semester I did in Florida because we were late in applying for universities here. So I had to sit out one semester until I got all my applications done. So I did one semester in a community college in Florida before I moved to the University of Georgia.
So what did you notice about people's drinking habits when you moved to Florida and Georgia in college?
So in Florida, it was still pretty sheltered because I wasn't at a hostel or I wasn't too much involved in campus. But once I moved to Georgia, for the first year, it wasn't too much. But once I got my own apartment, the second year, and then the third year, once I got involved with the newspaper at the university, we'd hang out, we'd have friends, and we'd hang out at the bars, and there was drinking. That's what college students do, and drink. But even at that point, it wasn't too bad. It was just something new I had found, which I never knew I could do. Just I had no idea. I have grown up in such a way that it never was a factor like, oh, alcohol, once you're 18 you can have it. It was just something I discovered along the way once I started hanging out with my friends in college. And then I think it got worse after my first few years of marriage. It wasn't even a problem until after first few years after I'd been married.
Mm. How young were you when you were married?
23.
Sorry, 23 you said?
23. Yeah. We're going
Okay.
on 16 years of marriage now.
Amazing. What does your husband do?
So we have several businesses in India. We own a McDonald's in India. And then we have a shopping mall. We have a school. So we own several businesses which are kind of like running on their own franchises, and we overlook them.
And they're all in India, are they?
Yes, they're all in India because we moved there in the year 2012 for
Hmm.
6 years, and we developed those businesses until we came back. And
Mm.
so my in-laws are over there, which oversee some of it. But as you know, most of them are franchises. Like we own the buildings and all of that stuff, so we don't have to be there as such for it.
Yeah, got it. And when you said your drinking increased a couple years into your marriage, that must have been around when you were 25 or so. What happened?
I would say it was after, it was about 28, 29. I had my first child at 27. And then I had a really traumatic miscarriage at I guess at 29. I'm not exactly sure as to the timeline of that, but I had a miscarriage at 16 weeks. And then just around those times, I was in an accident with my older, then my only child, um, when he was about a year old. This, a young guy just came up, pulled out of his lane from the opposite side, and just came straight head on to me, and you know totally like totaled our car, and all the airbags went off. So it was just, we had that accident, and I had the 16-week miscarriage, and then I had another similar accident, not that traumatic, but it was just a truck that brushed against us, and I was also pregnant with that baby that I miscarried that time. So it was just, I think, that cascade of traumatic events that led to the acceleration of the alcohol, because I was using it to cope.
Thank you for sharing. So that was a stress trigger, it sounds like. So you were stressed, or you were anxious, or you felt traumatized by what had happened. And so you wanted to turn to something to try and relieve you of that stress and anxiety. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah. Yep.
And so, what did you drink? How much? And what was the impact of that?
So I think at that time when I drank, it wasn't much. I mean, it was maybe three, four glasses. It wasn't even a whole bottle of wine. It was maybe two, three glasses of wine. My tolerance wasn't even built up. So, that much would, get me a little like buzzed, or in the zone, as I like to say, to make me forget all the trauma. Um, but I would say it accelerated even more after I moved to India, which is another thing, because I went through a couple of more miscarriages after that. And I was living in a town where I hadn't grown up, with different family values from my in-laws. They wanted certain things, and I was born in Kenya, so I wasn't used to the lifestyle in India. And so just dealing with all of that, and then the miscarriages, all of that, it put me in a really deep hole, or in a deep I guess, in a very bad place, which accelerated it even more.
Mm, got it. And so, this was what year now? You're back in India, and your drinking is accelerating now in India, it seems. Is this around 2012 or so?
Yes, that's, I would say, honestly, at 2012, 2013 is when it went even way off the deep end, where I would drink even more.
How so? Like, how much would you drink, and what would happen as a result of that?
That's the funny thing, is I never realized how much I would drink. The town we were in, which is in a state of Gujarat, it's prohibition. You don't have alcohol. there is prohibition. Even you wouldn't believe, in this day and age, they have rules of prohibition. So you have to have a US passport, an American passport, or foreign passport to have a certain amount of liquor given to you a month that you can buy.
Wow.
And then you have bootleggers too. So you can get a little more extra based on the bootleggers. So my husband and I, we'd get our quota for the month, and then if we needed extra, we'd get it from the bootleggers. But I guess I started having vodka. Um, you know, Over there you can't choose. You can't. It's not a shop that you can go into where you have like wine or seltzer or this and that. It's just a limited amount of what you have. So you get what you get. And I think that was vodka. We used to get vodka and we drink it. It would be late at night. My son would be sleeping. Me and my husband would be watching TV. And I never realized how bad it got until, I realized it was a problem. I
What
never
were you
even realized the trauma, what I was doing at that time.
what did you think you were doing at the time? Just having a few drinks and relaxing? Did you conceptually realize that you were suppressing the pain of the miscarriages and what had happened? Were you consciously aware that that's what you were doing, or were you just unaware?
I think I was a little aware, but I was also unaware because I was very depressed as to, I was not adjusting well to being in India. I didn't really like it there. And we were living with my in laws at that time. And I felt like really trapped in terms of, their expectations and all of that. So I guess I was numbing myself that way to numb everything out. And then we did eventually move out, and things got a little bit better. But from that point onwards, it was like I had formed a habit that I just couldn't shake from that point onwards.
You mentioned the expectations from your in-laws. What were those expectations?
Okay, so as I mentioned, having grown up in Kenya, it's very different as to grown up as how you grow up in India. In India, they have all the rituals, a certain time that you do certain things. And in Kenya, it was very relaxed. We wouldn't follow those rituals. Like they'd have different dates in the calendar for different functions. And when I got to India, it was like my in laws expected me to follow those, even though I hadn't been brought up that way. So, so some of them, it's like one day you are expected to cook a certain food and eat that food during the day, which I hadn't grown up that way. And so, my mother-in-law would be like frustrated that I didn't follow that. You know, they're so like set in their routines that they don't have that mindset to try to understand that, hey, this girl's background is different and she doesn't get it. So it was just hard to explain and to bridge that gap, to bridge that misunderstanding, so to speak. And it just led to a lot of friction.
And to you calling the bootleggers a little bit more than maybe you would have liked by the sounds of things.
that was I didn't even know that person. It was my husband, and God bless him. He's been with me for forever and like gone through everything and supported me no matter what. So even though he knew I had a problem, he never once said to me that, hey, you need to stop drinking, because he knew I couldn't do without it. So, but he was always willing to find me ways so that I could get out of it, And he was trapped in the middle of two worlds, like trying to satisfy his parents as well as trying to be there for me. So I don't know.
So you and this stage you had one son. Your second son hadn't been born yet, and so you were back there in India for a year or so. Is that right? 2012, 2013, and then you returned to the US.
No. We went in 2012 and we were there for 6 years.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And your drinking over those 6 years gradually increased. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, got it. And then what happened when you returned to the US in terms of maybe having your second child and your drinking habits?
Yeah, so that's the funny thing. We came back, and as I mentioned, the prohibition in the state over there in India. So once I came back, I was like, wow, I have all this variety, this range. So yeah, I went to town a little bit, but we were still trying for our. We were actually having. We discussed that we were gonna try having our second child, like try the last time. I had gone through three miscarriages. I did a failed IVF cycle in India. And still, I was determined to have a second child just because I'm an only child and I really wanted a second child for my older son to have a sibling. And so we were trying the last time and I got pregnant. And the funny thing is, I just quit alcohol because I wanted it so bad that I was able to be alcohol free that whole time. And, thanks to God, I had my second child, my rainbow child. And even while breastfeeding him and all for the months after I had him, I was alcohol free. But then here comes the pandemic. And my husband was working, my parents work, even though they're in the same town, they work. So I was alone raising my second child, the baby, as well as managing my older son's routines because my husband would work. And his work was such a way that he wouldn't get weekends off. He had like a rotating schedule. So it'd be like 6 days of work, 2 days off, 6 days of work, 2 days off. And they would rotate. Like, so if he had Monday, Tuesday off, the next week he'd have Tuesday, Wednesday off. So it wasn't every week that he had a weekend off. So it got to such a point where I was letting my frustrations out with alcohol because raising my younger one, I was stuck at home. I love working out. I couldn't work out. I couldn't do anything because I was just, a baby is so hands on that you have to be there. You can't like just take away 1 hour and go work out or like, go take a shower or something. So it got to a point where, I was like telling my husband, I was like, you need to either quit your job or do something because I need a change. I'm fed up. And, as I said, we have business in India. So he was able to quit his job and I was able to join P90. And that's where I joined. I actually listened to the P90 podcast for at least 2 or 3 months before I joined the program. I'd always listen while I went for a walk in the neighborhood, my 1 hour walk in the neighborhood. I'll be playing the podcast and every time at the end, it'd be like, go to this link and just set up an exploratory call. And every time I think about it, but then it took me at least 2 or 3 months until I was like, no, now I'm ready to join this program.
You sound like just about every person who gets on those exploratory calls. They listen to me saying, "Hey, if you'd like to have a 15-minute exploratory call about your drinking, go here." And then they listen to another dozen or so interviews, and then they finally do it. So you've come full circle now, Purvi. You were listening to the show for 3 months. You finally took action, and now you're a guest on the podcast.
I know. And the thing is, it took me so long to get on the program because I tried AA. I didn't go to any meetings, but I tried reaching out to them and they were not really, I guess, welcoming. I didn't feel like, wow, they really wanted to help me. And then I had a therapist in town, a local therapist in town, which I went to for like 2 or 3 months before I got pregnant with my second one. That kind of sort of helped me to, I guess, lessen my use of alcohol, but didn't really help me quit it. But, nothing really worked. So I wasn't ready to join this program until I knew that, hey, this is going to really work for me.
Mm. And how did you come to the realization that, hey, this was going to work for you?
Just listening to all of the people's testimonials, like on the podcasts, and like just hearing how good they sounded, how how happy they were after they managed the problem. Like I wanted that. I've been wanting that for so long whenever I see my kids, and I'm like, I just don't want to, I don't want to continue down this road for their sake and for the future.
What was the road that you felt that you were heading down if you didn't get your drinking habits sorted?
Oh, definitely an early death. An early death, or destroying my kids' futures, just by not being there, being hands on, traumatizing them, ruining my marriage, just a lot of negative things.
And was there evidence that some of that was beginning to happen because of your drinking? And if so, what was that evidence?
Well, my husband and I were having problems in our marriage. My older son, now who is 12, was seeing things. I'd forget things I'd said the night before, and then the next day he'd call me out on them. Or, I'd snap at him, and, he's just a 12-year-old or 11-year-old that time. And I'd feel really bad the next day because I did it because I was not in control of myself. And so, it was really, really eating me from the inside.
Yeah. It must have been a wake up call for your 11-year-old son to be calling mum out on certain things, being forgetful.
Mhm.
How did that feel?
Really bad because I've just felt like I've always, despite my drinking, until the day that I joined this program, I've always been on top of things. Even if I drank, I'd always, make sure everything was okay with him, like his clothes, his food, his schoolwork, everything. I'd be on top of things. So I knew I was slipping up towards the end.
And were there other things that you noticed regarding your 2-year-old son? Were you slipping up there? I mean, obviously your 2-year-old's not going to identify those things, probably way too young, of course, but what were you identifying that you were doing maybe not in the best way?
Um, well, I would say it in terms of his schedule, just trying to make his schedule work according to how I was in the zone. Um, and one time I also almost slipped with him in my hands, while I was when I was buzzed, I almost like slipped with him, and then it just gave me a wake up call like, oh my gosh, I could have dropped him. And yeah, I don't even want to think about that.
Mm. And what about with your husband? What did you notice was happening with your relationship with your husband because of your drinking?
Well, he stopped listening to me after I'd had a couple of drinks every night. He'd just turn me off. And in the morning, there'd be a lot of tension in terms of, there'd be things I'd not remember. There'd be things I would remember that I regretted, that I didn't want to talk about out of shame, out of guilt, out of regret. And it just got to a point where it was just too much. Like there was nothing I could say or do, and there was nothing he wanted to say or do because he was just tired of it, and I didn't have any, I guess, anything good to tell him to kind of repair it.
Got it. And so at what point did you start listening to this podcast? Like, what was the intention behind that choice? Because at some point you must have recognized that your drinking had got out of control somewhat. And you mentioned you reached out to AA, etc. Did you literally like type in alcohol into Apple Podcasts and then you found this particular show and started listening to it? Did you like what was the moment that you took action?
Well, I would say the moment I took action was even before I got pregnant with my second one, because I realized and I identified the problem that time. You remember when I said I started seeing a therapist in the local town? Um, I knew I had a problem then, and then I got pregnant and I stopped drinking for like for about a year and a half or so, and then I started up, and then the pandemic hit. So even then, after I started back up, I knew, that this is not what I want to do. And um, before even I landed to the James Sonic podcast, I tried a couple of other podcasts. Like there's a sobriety network. There's another one. There's a couple of other ones that I tried, but they didn't really help me as much as I, wanted. I was seeking help through something other than AA or that therapist until I landed on, like, I kept trying different things, listening to different podcasts until, I heard yours and I heard of like several of them until I decided, hey, this is something I want to try.
Got it. And then just walk us through what happened from the moment you heard the podcast say, hey, book an exploratory call and possibly join us in our Project 90 experience. Just walk us through what happened from there to where you are now today, talking to me on the show.
Yeah, so then finally when I decided, hey, I'm ready to join this, I had somebody reach out to me in terms of, kind of vet me if I was one of the people they would take in, I guess, who would fit into their program. And yeah, they decided that, I was eligible. And then I got in touch with Coach Victoria, who, as soon as I signed up, I texted her right away. After I spoke with her on the phone, I texted her just about an hour after, saying that, hey, I feel like drinking. What do I do? And I didn't realize what Marco Polo was, the group, and she said, get on there and say what you feel. And I got on there and I didn't even know what it was until I recorded my first one. And I got some responses encouraging me. And from then onwards, it was like just a whole new world had opened up.
Yeah, just to clarify for our listener, when Purvi's mentioning Marco Polo is a phone app that we use here at Project 90 where members and our clients can communicate with each other by way of video selfies as opposed to being in a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group, for example. It's certainly a much more personal way of interacting with each other because you can see people's faces and voices and body language. And our members tell us that it's a great way of getting to know other clients and feeling connected to the group. And that seems to be your experience, Purvi.
Yes. Yeah. I got a lot of encouragement from people who were already in the group, and from people who are going through the same thing that I was. So it really helped to know that there were other people out there going through the same thing as me. And I was getting feedback and encouragement from them.
Mm. And so tell us a little bit more about the experience inside of that in relation to what happened to your cravings, what happened to your habits around alcohol, what were some of the new things you learned? Just maybe share a little bit of what the experience was like.
I got on a lot of the meetings, the Zoom meetings, which discuss and make you think about different aspects of surrounding alcohol use, and also the Marco Polos. I was able to say certain things down the road as I progressed, and I got feedback. So the exercises in the Zoom meetings really touched on different things that I'd never thought about and made me think in a different way that I'd never thought about. With as I mentioned, my previous miscarriages and the trauma I had and different things that I experienced, which I used alcohol to cope with. I realized that I could have coped a different way. It made me see that there was other ways and help out there for things that I'd gone through. And just we formed a lot of relationships with each other, people who were in the same program. You found some similarities and you found some a lot of like, I'd just say, again, once again, encouragement. And that's what you really need, I think, from the people that are going through the same thing as you. And then when you saw people who had graduated and how much they had enriched their lives and changed, it just motivated you more.
And so, what were some of the benefits that you have identified that you've generated as a result of being alcohol free? And I should note that as we're recording this, you're 92 days alcohol free so far. So, congratulations for that. Amazing job. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, so I have been very clear headed. I have been on top of everything, like in terms of before I would take shortcuts, when I'd be hungover and all, I'd not do certain things throughout my day, like, with the kids, making food, packing school bags, in terms of laundry, just general household chores. You take a lot of shortcuts and then not have the energy. So all of that has changed. My workouts have been also energized more. Um, my skin, my general health, I just feel so much better. I'm sleeping better. My relationship with my husband has improved. My relationship with my kids is where I want it to be, where I am there with them all the time, as opposed to zoned out, as I like to call it. When I'm under alcohol, I'm like zoned out. I don't know. They're just the older one sitting there on his iPad. I'm not talking to him. But now it's like we have meaningful conversations. I'm there, I'm all like 100% there.
You're present.
Yeah, present.
From zoned out to present. Yeah. Beautiful. Has it permanently rewired your mind around alcohol? Is it still in the process of that? Like, how do you feel now on day 92 in terms of your relationship with alcohol today and your relationship with alcohol in the coming years?
Yeah, so it has rewired my brain, I would say, because I really don't see myself going back to what I was. I have just come out on the other side and I've seen the benefits of the other side. So I don't ever see myself going back to that. Not just for the people in my life, but just for me overall. Um, just how it makes me feel, and just being an intellectual person, a normal person, I don't want to destroy my health or my future with this toxin, I guess. I'm almost going to be 40 years old in like 6 months, or about 8 months. And I don't want to be in my 40s uh, destroying my health on purpose. You know what I mean? Like, I I want to see my kids get married. I want to see my kids graduate. I want to be there for my grandkids, if they have grandkids on time. So so yeah, I just don't see myself going back to that.
Yeah, beautiful. And do you intend to return to a profession or to doing more work and maybe in journalism or running the businesses a little bit more over in India or creating businesses here in the US? What's your intention?
Yeah, so I definitely don't want to be at home. Journalism is not an option. That's just something that's a closed chapter of my life. But my
Me
husband and
too. Me too, by the way.
so
Yeah.
my
Apologies to any journalists, current journalists out there. I was very happy to have left that profession behind.
Yeah, but with businesses in India, I do help sometimes, help make decisions with him. But over here in America, we are looking into, having a small business just to keep us busy, once the kids are grown. So we're looking into a couple of businesses here, which, I would probably run or co partner with my husband. on. So we're still exploring. With the pandemic, it's just, things are really different now in terms of what you can buy and what the businesses are now in the market. So, but definitely, I'm not going to be at home because I just want to keep busy, and my kids are going to be grown, so I don't want to be sitting at home at all.
Mm. Amazing. And has your husband given you any feedback about the 92-day alcohol-free version of Purvi?
Oh yeah, yeah. He has just been really like, he just says that everything is changed in terms of, things are just calmer in the house. We argue a lot when I drink, and just things are calmer. Everything is just a lot peaceful. Um, he's just happy. Like, I can see that he's much happier and much content as opposed to before.
Oh, fantastic. Well, terrific, Purvi. Anything else of note that you feel that you might be tackling now or that you're looking forward to in this new alcohol-free version of Purvi?
I'm actually excited to see some. I have some family members and some friends who drink heavily, and I'm waiting for them to ask me like, why are you not drinking? And just to share some wisdom with them. I just see things in a very different way now. So I'm just waiting to be in a situation where I can maybe help them or guide them to this program, because it really worked for me. And I just, as I said, I reached out to AA and other people, and it didn't really work. So I think this really works. So I would just be willing to recommend this program to anybody because it works.
Amazing. I asked Coach Victoria English to message me just before we hit record on this interview, and she sent me a message that said, Purvi felt she struggled in the beginning because she compared herself to others, thinking she wasn't enough fun in the program, but she emerged as a leader, and everyone loved her and her honesty and followed her lead. How does that feel?
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thanks.
And thank you for being a leader, and thank you for supporting others in our community, and thank you for being honest. And I acknowledge all of our other members who followed your lead, Purvi, because you may have come in feeling apprehensive, maybe timid, maybe unsure. But you know what? You were on the court playing. There are two types of people in life, those who are in the stands and those who are on the court. And you got on the court. So, and not only were you on the court, but other people followed you. So you not only helped yourself and your family, but you also have inspired other people inside of our community. And now, because you're a guest on the Alcohol Free Lifestyle podcast, the very show that you were listening to for months before you took action, now you're here inspiring others. So well done.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I really thank you and the coaches, Coach Victoria, Coach Sarah. It's just been a pleasure, and it's really helped me, this program.
You're so welcome. Purvi Desai, 39 from Athens, Georgia. Thank you so much for your time. Congratulations again. And to you, the listener, thank you much for listening. Just a reminder, if you would like to have an exploratory call, the one that Purvi is talking about, that'd be the first step in your alcohol-free lifestyle. What should they do? Purvi, what do you think they should do?
Oh yeah, make the call.
Yeah. Do you want to do like a big promotion for it? You can tell our listener to go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/schedule. Go for it. Let's see your broadcast journalism voice. Let's hear it.
All right. Go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/schedule. It will change your life.
I love it. Thank you. You and I should host a TV show together. Thank you, Purvi, and thank you to you, the listener, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you, James.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I want to load you up with some free stuff. If you look in the show description, there's a link there to get my guide, which is the Alcohol Freedom Formula Guide. And in that guide, I will walk you through the process and system for successfully reducing or quitting alcohol. It's the same system and process that I give to my clients inside of Project 90. And if you would like to get your hands on that guide, you can click the link in the description part of this episode, or you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. Likewise, if you would like to be considered for Project 90 to join our community and get some accountability, some coaching, and have fun, achieve some goals over at least 90 days with our help and support, then you're invited to schedule a complimentary coaching call with one of my coaches. You can do that by clicking the link in the show description or going to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/schedule. Now, Project 90 is for over 30s only, and it's really for people who are ready to get long-term power over alcohol. You don't have to quit forever, but you will have to quit for at least 90 days with our support. Just a reminder, 95% of my content is free and plastered all over the internet. If you just Google James Swanwick and the word alcohol, you'll find that. For those of you who want additional support, if you want coaching, fun, accountability, if you realize that you can't do this on your own or you just plain don't want to, then I invite you to schedule that call and we can talk about if Project 90 is for you. If you would like to take some of my supplements, swanvitality.com is the website. I'll put a link in the show notes as well. I have a liver support product called Loving Liver, which I designed and specially formulated to help remove toxins from your liver after years of alcohol consumption. Again, there's a link in the show description. We've also got a green powder there, which turns into a green juice filled with amazing ingredients to support you and give you energy throughout the day. And there's also a magnesium product which I take every night to help me prepare for sleep and to sleep through the night. So there's a few options there. Lastly, if this episode or the show in general has helped you or supported you in any way, I would so appreciate it if you would write a review. It really does help the show climb the rankings and expose the show to people who don't yet know about us. So if this show has benefited you in any way and you feel compelled to pay it forward, just writing a short little review, hopefully a nice one, will be so appreciated, and I will thank you immensely. Lastly, if you'd like to talk to me about anything at all, feel free to send me an email at james@alcoholfreelifestyle.com. I do read and respond to every email. And you can also follow me on Instagram at James Swanwick. Send me a message there. And I look forward to connecting with you soon. Catch you on the next one.